back! Time for the Riveteers Rampage deck. Alright, let's get into it. Shall we? Alright, first up we have Henzi Toolbox Torre. He is black, red, green for a 3/3 Devil Rogue. This is, by the way, the face card commander for the Riveteers Rampage deck. We'll only be doing the new cards and any cards that they decided to include from the Streets of New Capenna main set here. Not going to talk about all the reprints, lands, anything like that. We're just not worried about it. So, he says, each creature spell you cast with mana value 4 or greater has Blitz. The Blitz cost is equal to its mana cost. So Blitz is the main mechanic from the Riveteers. Basically, when you choose to cast a creature spell with Blitz, or in this case for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. You then sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Cool. So anything you cast with mana value 4 or greater, you can just pay its mana cost. It gets haste, and then when it dies, you draw a card and you sacrifice it. Or rather, you sacrifice it, and then when it dies, you draw a card. Difficult to do out of order. Blitz costs you pay cost 1 less for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. Okay, so basically, he comes out. You can only do the thing when he's out anyway. So he comes out and gives you a discount of 1 on all your Blitz costs, right? If you've cast him twice from the command zone this game, then he's going to give you 2 less, or a discount of 2 on each of your Blitz costs. Excuse me a moment. There we go. All better. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so he makes your blitzes cheaper and gives everything 4 or greater blitz. And in this case, if their mana value is 4, you're going to be able to blitz them for 3, assuming it's not all colored mana. Like if it's, I don't know, a black, red creature, then this wouldn't really help you because it's 1 colorless mana. But most creatures are not costed that way, so you're probably good. Yeah, probably good. Sorry about that. Dealing with some stuff. All good now. And he appears to be hoarding some halo, I assume. He's got a little knife there. He looks very mischievous, so as far as I can tell, he's absolutely encouraging people to just like go ham. Give him some halo and off they go, and then he's gonna stab them in the back once they're done doing his dirty work. So that's pretty gnarly. Hey, there you go. That's what you want to do, right? Your alternate commander is the Beamtown Bullies. 1 black, red, green for a 4/4 Ogre Devil Warrior with vigilance and haste. You can tap. Target opponent whose turn it is puts target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under their control. It gains haste. Goad it. At the beginning of the next end step, exile it. So you can give them one of your creatures. And it gets haste. Oh, one of your previously dead creatures. So creature card out of your graveyard comes onto the battlefield for your opponent. You just give it to him. It gains haste, so it can attack immediately, but it's goaded, which means that it has to attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So you give them a creature of yours to attack someone else with, and then after that turn, it's exiled. So you can't get it back out of the graveyard again. It's not going to stick around or anything like that, but you're like, hey, do you want something? Here you go, but send it over there. This one is fun. This fits well in like some kind of sacrifice, graveyard recursion kind of deck, and you've got the ogre. You get 2 devils, and I assume this is a warrior. We're gonna go with that. Oh my gosh, wait, those guys are riding on the steel beam that this guy just has across his shoulders. That's really funny. I don't really see how you're bringing things back from the dead and goading them, but I don't know. Maybe these guys are like encouraging people to go crazy. And they're all kind of watching, so I can see the vigilance, and they look pretty hasty. Yeah. There was actually a reference, I don't remember the name of the card, but there was something in a flavor text about that they'd heard that the Beamtown Bullies were around, so you should be careful. And I wondered if there was a card called Beamtown Bullies, and it wasn't in the main set, but it's in the commander deck, and I think that's good. Bellowing Mauler. Would not want to be in that person's way in the slightest. We have a 4 and a black for a 4/6 Ogre Warrior. At the beginning of your end step, each player loses 4 life unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. Okay, so this includes you, but I mean, if you're in the sacrifice deck, you don't care, right? Sacrifice / recursion, which is pretty much what the Riveteers are going for in a lot of the cases. They have a lot of death and attack triggers and treasure. That's like their thing, as we mentioned at the very, very beginning of the stream, like way at the beginning. So yeah, you don't care. Like, you're gonna get these creatures back anyway, or you get some benefit to sacking them. And this is everybody. So you're gonna either clear that board or drop those life totals. Granted, Bellowing Mauler has a target on his back, for sure. But hey man, if you can protect him somehow, this is gonna do some work. He's pretty sure he can't get charged with murder if he calls it organic demolition. Oh man. And wielding 2 hammers because one's simply not enough. Organic demolition is my new favorite phrase. Referring to murder, of course. I think I have other phrases I like more, but organic demolition is just takes the cake, really does. Yeah, that's all. And I mean, clearly this is what's going on here in this art. It looks extreme. This guy is just, he's just done. Is this guy really coming up here with like a baseball bat? Sir. Just run. At a point, just run, you know? Look at your friend over here. Get out of Dodge. Go. Crazy people. Alright. Why is this still in here? Alright. So, well, we'll see if this is the wrong thing. Let me just skip ahead for a okay. So this card's still in here. I don't think it's supposed to be. I don't really know. There's some question as to whether or not Boxing Ring is in this deck or not. And I thought that I had taken it out here because I discovered that after the fact. I went down to the 8 cards that only come in set or collector boosters, and Boxing Ring was listed, and I said, well, that can't be right because it's in the Riveteers Rampage deck. And I checked a few different sources, and I don't think it's there, and yet it was listed there. So I really don't know. I guess, well, it's been on screen long enough. We'll just look at it now, and hopefully someone can confirm or deny whether or not it's actually in the deck. If it isn't, it may only be available in set and or collector boosters. That said, the Riveteers Rampage deck had fewer new cards than the others without Boxing Ring, so I don't know. It was very strange. In any case, let's just go over it. Hopefully it's in here. If it's not, I apologize, but I would double check. Just double check your sources, double check the deck list once they're available for purchase before you buy it. Alright, so Boxing Ring though, it's a cool card. It's great. My husband wanted to put it in his Naeth deck, and for obvious reasons, Naeth profits off of fighting creatures, so here we go. Boxing Ring, 1 and a green. Artifact. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it fights up to one target creature you don't control with the same mana value. Tap. Create a treasure token. Activate only if you control a creature that fought this turn. Well, I mean, they have to be the same mana value, but and I don't know how long they'll last either. But it actually makes sense because they match weights, right? Like you have the different weight levels for boxing. And so they would be fighting, and if you do control, you would get paid, right? If you control a creature that fought. So flavor-wise, we're on, and obviously there's a boxing ring here. So pretty tough to mess that one up, but hey, it's there. Flavor-wise, it's really on point. Like I said, not 100% sure whether it's actually in this deck. Different sources say different things. Hopefully it is, because that'd be really cool, and it would make a lot of sense, but I'm not sure. We'll see. I guess maybe I'll add something in the video description if I can find out one way or another, but I'm not sure. I don't know where to look. Nothing is true. Okay. Cool card though. Love the card. Anyway. Chaldaya Guardian. 3 and a green for a 4/3 human soldier. As I've said before, literally everyone in the Riveteers is ripped AF. For the most part. There are like 2 or 3 creatures that I've seen in the Riveteers who are pretty slender. But most everybody is just like, bruh, like, it's really, really inspiring and also intimidating, which I think is probably what they're going for. Whenever Chaldaya Guardian or another creature you control with mana value 4 or greater dies, create 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Blitz 2 and a green. So again, if you cast the spell for its blitz cost, which would be 2 and a green instead of 3 and a green, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. You then sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. So that's interesting. So you can cast it for its blitz cost, and this is another one of those, I love when they have, sometimes on the blitz cards, they'll get another bonus when they die. So if you cast this for its blitz cost, it comes in, gets haste, and then you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. However, when you do, in this case, you would not only draw the card that Blitz normally gives you, but you also get 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. So that's pretty cool. You're getting some definite value there. And because this deck has ways to like manipulate stuff in the graveyard, I mean, you know, it's pretty solid. If you choose not to Blitz this, then it's just whenever this or another creature you control with mana value 4 or greater dies, you get the green and white citizen creature tokens. So this fits in very well to, and then you get more sacrifice fodder if you're making like a sacrifice oriented deck. Yeah, it works very, very well. Yeah, beefy. It's true though, it's great. All right, moving along. Oh, and also she's the guardian, so I guess like somebody died, so she's like gonna come like mess them up, right? It would be better if we had 2, but that's fine. Dodgy Jalopy. So this was the one that was in the list instead of the boxing ring that didn't have boxing ring listed. So this I'm pretty sure is actually in the list. It's a question of whether boxing ring also is. But again, the one that said boxing ring didn't have Dodgy Jalopy. So really, someone somewhere doesn't know what they're talking about, and I don't know which one is true yet. I apologize for that. I tried to do my research, and I don't know. But in any case, hopefully they're both in here, because then they would each, the Riveteers Rampage would have an roughly even number of new cards as the other family's decks. So, we're hoping. Dodgy Jalopy is 2 and a green for a star 5 artifact vehicle with trample and crew 3. Dodgy Jalopy's power is equal to the highest mana value among creatures you control. Okay, great. So if the more expensive creature you have out, the greater the power of the Dodgy Jalopy. It also has Scavenge for 2 and a green. Pay 2 and a green, exile this card from your graveyard. Put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to this card's power on target creature. Scavenge only is a sorcery. Okay, so if this goes to the graveyard, when you scavenge, you can pay 2 and a green, and at that point, it will still key off the highest mana value among creatures you control. So at that point, if you have a 4 dropout, its power in the graveyard will be 4, and so you put 4 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Now, of course, this is only as a sorcery, so they can interrupt that in many ways. They could, once you pick, let's see, I believe the trigger of putting the 4 +1/+1 counters on a creature would go on the stack as soon as you exile this from your graveyard, but they could easily kill the target creature that you're intending to put them on, and then it's just like, oh well. So that kind of sucks, but I mean, you know, that's kind of just a thing that happens, and sometimes you just have to take the risk because it's worth it. You can get a bunch of value out of this, and that's really nice. As for art, it absolutely looks very dodgy. That's all kinds of banged up and weird, and it's literally on cinder blocks, so I guess, is the implication that they're doing kind of like a Flintstones thing? Oh wait, is that guy? Oh, that guy's like fixing it. He's in the hood, tossing a bottle of Halo? These people, I'm telling you, the new Capennans do not, they deserve the problems they're having. Okay? That's all I'm gonna say. You people. Anyway. But yeah, like I said, I guess if its power is equal to the highest mana value among creatures you control, mana value would imply some kind of a cost involved, but I like to imagine that because it's on cinder blocks, it's like a Flintstone situation where its power depends on the people in it and how quickly they can run. And that's how it's gonna do. Yeah, no respect at all for the angel juice. None at all, as you say. Yeah, so, and it takes 3 to crew, so you need at least a 3-power creature out. So I suppose if it's going to be functional at all, it's going to be a 3/5. So, well, not necessarily, because you could tap 3 1/1s to get there, and then it'd be a 1/5. So, yeah. I don't know. But they did a great job with the art. It's extremely dodgy. Alright. First Responder. Now, I think this is like a firefighter, actually. Definitely dressed to look like one, for sure, so that's cool. 3 and a green for a 3/3 Ogre Citizen with Vigilance. Makes sense, they're watchful. At the beginning of your end step, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand, then put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that creature's power on First Responder. So yeah, wait, is that a person? I can't tell if they're carrying a person. Possibly. I think so. Either way, they're rescuing people, and so the First Responder gets more powerful the more people they rescue. So that's cool. I mean, I guess that's at the beginning of your end step. They're probably not in harm's way, and it's your end step, so you can't recast the creatures that turn. But this one just gets bigger. So, yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. You could conceivably even sack some other, not sack, but you could return a green and white citizen creature token to your hand, which would just sack the creature, but you're putting a +1/+1 counter on, it'd just be 1 +1/+1 counter on this guy, but then, you know, then he becomes a 4/4 vigilance for 4, so I think you're doing fine. And it's a way to use those little citizens you're making. So that's interesting. And the art fits what's happening, I think, assuming that that's a person that he's carrying. And, yeah, we love to see it. Glittering Stockpile. Now this is one that's in the main set. It's 2 and a red for a treasure. Artifact, of course. Add tap to add red. Put a stash counter on glittering stockpile. So you can tap it for red and you put a stash counter. You can otherwise tap and sacrifice glittering stockpile to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of stash counters on glittering stockpile. So it is X mana of any one color. So this is basically a red mana rock until you want a massive mana dump. But it is all in one color. So not super flexible, but I mean if you just need, like if you have a big X spell, this is a nice way to get there. It can be a mana rock until you don't need it anymore and you just need to dump a bunch of stuff into one spell. Or, I suppose you could just like stock up and have a bunch of floating mana and then do a bunch of other things, but yeah, it's reusable treasure until it isn't. And I mean, glittering stockpile, like look at this. You've got mountains of gold actively being dumped down here, by the way, in an ocean of Halo. I mean, my goodness. Glittering stockpile, certainly. I think that really fits. The only thing Ziatora desires is more. I mean, I think on some level, most of us can relate. This might be taking it to an extreme, but I don't know if we could get there, would we? We all have to look inside ourselves and find out. Industrial Advancement. 3 and a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's mana value. Okay. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. So you basically just sack a creature, and then, assuming it's any mana value at all, so in this case tokens would not work. You would need at least a 1 mana value card, but at that point, like unless you can stack your deck, you're getting kind of risky. But at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, look at so you sack a, let's just say a 3 mana value creature, right? You sack a 3 mana value creature on your end step. If you do, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, and you can put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Doesn't matter what its cost is, all that matters is the sacked creature's cost. Whatever you flip up, whatever you look at, you just bam onto the battlefield, and then the rest go to the bottom. That's a nice way to cheat some creatures out, let me tell you. So it's interesting because you have this creature, you've got a person inside here, and they've built like a mechanical bug for themselves, and they're flying around. So I guess you take this creature and put it in this one, and you get something bigger and better. Yeah. Oh, the things you can do with this card. I'm excited for it. Alright. Yeah. It makes sense. The art is fascinating. Very, very nice. This is some of my favorite art in the entire, like the whole set. Jolene the Plunder Queen. 2 red green for a 2/2 human warrior. 4 mana for a 2/2. However, we'll get there. Whenever a player attacks one or more of your opponents, that attacking player creates a treasure token. If you would create 1 or more treasure tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. You can then sacrifice 5 treasures to put 5 +1/+1 counters on Jolene. Okay? That part, fine, great. She can become a 7/7, but that's not even really the point. I mean, you're encouraging players. It's actually you're encouraging people not to attack you, right? I know, Alex. I love her too. I'm making this deck. You guys, I'm making so many decks. Okay. Yeah. So basically, it's whenever a player attacks 1 or more of your opponents. So it can be you, and you would just make a treasure token. And whenever they attack 1 or more of your opponents, they get a treasure token, but not if they attack you. So you're discouraging them from attacking you, And also, anytime that you're going to make treasure tokens, which would be whenever you're attacking an opponent, basically, or any other time you're making treasure, you make an additional one. Okay? You can stack them to put counters on her. That's great, and that makes her harder to kill, sure. But the fact that she says, no, 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 don't attack me. Also, I'm just going to be over here making treasure and making more of it. And look at her. She is having the time of her life. She's got this giant bag of gold. She's punched her way through a window with this decked out Thanos-esque gauntlet, right? I mean, she's living her best life, and yeah, she's inspiring. She is truly a queen, and I want to cosplay her someday. It's probably never going to happen, but by golly, if it could, maybe it will. This is one of my favorite cards in this whole group, honestly. I know it's so simple, but the art is doing so much. It just is. She's having the time of her life, and she makes me feel like if I played her, I would have the time of my life too. So, probably going to. Probably going to happen. Alright. Mezzo Mugger, on a much less enjoyable note. 4 and a red for a 3/3 Vicino Rogue. Whenever Mezzo Mugger attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You may play those cards this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Terrific. Blitz 2 and a red. So again, if you cast it for its blitz cost instead, which is in this case 2 cheaper, probably because it would get ridiculous if you didn't, it gets haste. You're going to sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step, but when it dies, you draw a card. So in this case, you play it for blitz, you attack, and you get to, or not even with blitz, you can just play it normally, but you get to attack, exile the top card of each player's library, and then you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast any of those spells you want. Beautiful. So, yeah, I see nothing wrong with this. Fits pretty well. He's the Mezzo Mugger. He's found some guy on the Mezzo, and he's just like taking the watch. I suppose that could be a card related somehow. It works. This poor guy, he's having a terrible time. I hope this guy at least lets him go once he gets the watch, you know? Like, no need to kill people. You're a mugger, not a murderer. Chill. Next of kin. So this, instead of an artifact, this is the rare enchantment. It's an aura, so this is kind of interesting. I believe that the Riveteers didn't have like a rare artifact. Pretty sure, unless I'm just forgetting entirely. Let's see. 2 and a green for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When an enchanted creature dies, you may put a creature card you own with lesser mana value from your hand or from the command zone onto the battlefield. If you do, return next of kin to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty sick. Alright. So you enchant a creature, probably a big one, if you can manage it. Or a costly one, rather. Doesn't necessarily have to be big, it just has to cost a lot. Then when that creature dies, you can put a creature card with lesser mana value from your hand or the command zone, just put it on the battlefield, and then you return next of kin to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. So your creature dies, at the next end step, whatever you accordingly, just flip this on. So you can't just kind of keep going because it's got to be lesser mana value and you can't re-enchant them, but it's gonna, that succession, assuming you start pretty high and you have things that kind of go down in a relatively good progression, you're just gonna keep bringing stuff out. So value, assuming you have the right mana. I see the power here in the right deck, for sure. And the art, like you've got the old passing on the symbol to the new, so that's pretty good. And even the power line running through to here. Nice touch, nice touch. Protection racket. Protection. 2 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, repeat the following process for each opponent in turn order. Reveal the top card of your library. That player may pay life equal to that card's mana value. If they do, exile that card. Otherwise, put it into your hand. Okay, so your upkeep rolls around. In turn order, you can reveal the top card of your library. Your opponent can either pay life equal to that card's mana value. Now, if you reveal a land, well, dang. You're just, but they're probably going to pay the life equal to the mana value and just exile it. So hopefully you didn't need a land. I guess maybe play this after you don't need lands. Because you could just exile a bunch of lands. But if they don't pay the life, you just get to put it into your hand. So that's a nice little enchantment here. Make your opponents choose to either let you draw the card or lose life equal to its value. And this fits, definitely. She's like, hey, I'll look after you guys if you pay up. Won't let anything happen to you. Wink. Be a shame if something terrible were to befall you all. Oh, you're right. Here you go. We'll pay up. Yeah. Rough. But it fits. I mean, you're basically like, yeah, you pay me and I won't get this thing. And, yeah. I don't know what she's holding, though. I think it's a bag. Oh, all the coins are getting sucked into it. It's magic. Of course it is. Okay. That's a big hammer, too. I wouldn't want that at my shop either. Or my home. Reign of Riches. Just what we would all love to see, am I right? 3 red. Enchantment. When Reign of Riches enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. The first spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure was spent to cast has Cascade. Nice. Cascade was a commander... I know it was in Commander Legends. I don't believe it was anything else. When you cast the spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Put the exiled cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. So basically you just get double spells. It's the first spell you cast each turn that you used a treasure to pay for. But I mean, like, you just cast it. And it's any non-land card, so if you cast an instant on someone else's turn and use a treasure to pay for it, pretty sure even if it's a creature, it just comes out. You cast it without paying. So, yeah, very powerful enchantment in a treasure deck. Yeah, we're gonna have fun. And look at this. I mean, it's literally raining riches. All these people, this dragon, which I assume is Zeatora, is just having a great time. And all the people, too. This guy's jumping for joy. Wouldn't we all be? Yeah. Very, very nice. Riveteers Charm. Okay, so yeah, we're in the charm cycle from the original set. Oh, I believe... Nope, Reign of Riches was from this one. Alright. Black, red, green. For an instant, choose one. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. Nice. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards. Cool. Or exile target player's graveyard. Well. Yeah, again, this is just a pretty flexible, nice little, I don't know, utility card. You can make people sacrifice the most expensive creature they've got out, or planeswalker. You can get some bonus card draw, essentially. Or you can get rid of a pesky graveyard. Yeah. The background of, like, actual rivets and metal and hot metal is a nice touch for sure. I like it a lot. Riveteers Confluence. This is our final confluence card. 2 black, red, green for a sorcery. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Riveteers Confluence deals 1 damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control. Good against like token decks usually. You may put a land card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. Now that's nice. Because if you've been discarding things or stuff just kind of ends up there, you mill stuff, you can just bring out the land cards. And you don't even have to exile this. So if you have a way to get this back too, like, that's because usually lands are just kind of like, oh well, if they end up in the graveyard, that's where they are. Or you can just get some card draw in exchange for life, like draw 3 cards, lose 3 life. Okay. That's usually a pretty good deal. Now, granted, it's draw 3 cards, lose 3 life, and also pay 5 mana, but, you know, 5 mana for 3 cards at 3 life loss is kind of a lot, but it's the fact that you can pick what you want. Do 1 of each, 2 of one and 1 of another, or 1 of them 3 times. So you could deal 3 damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control, actually. So that could be wipe the board of the small things. And again, we've got black, red, and green. That seems like card draw, lose a life. This is probably the deal 1 damage, and then, I don't know, the land card on the battlefield. It makes a little less sense, but, you know, I appreciate it. Riveteers Overlook. This is the land cycle. The auto-sack land. Can we call it a sack land? That's probably already a thing. When Riveteers Overlook enters the battlefield, sacrifice it. When you do, search your library for a basic swamp, mountain, or forest card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle and you gain 1 life. So again, fix your mana, gain a life, great. They're building something very fancy. It looks like a bridge or maybe some kind of a balcony of sorts, and they're looking out over the rest of the city. Crazy. Reads, along the outer girders, in gold filigree, are inscribed the names of all those who fell to their deaths during construction. Oh man. I remember reading this now, because it is from the main set, but it's just really sad. But good. Good. They should be remembered, absolutely. Too often, the people who help places run are just kind of overlooked. Gosh. No, seriously, did not intend that. Like, no pun intended. But, yeah. We should remember them. Turf War. Oh, I saw this card and I hated it when I saw it. Kind of. I mean, okay. So it's 4 and a red for an enchantment. When Turf War enters the battlefield, for each player, put a contested counter on target land that player controls. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, if that player controls 1 or more lands with contested counters on them, that creature's controller gains control of 1 of those lands of their choice and untaps it. So it enters the battlefield, and for each player, you put a contested counter on a land that player controls. Then you have a creature deals combat damage to a player, and if that player controls 1 or more lands with contested counters on them, then the creature's controller can take 1 of those lands and untap it. And I get it. Like, thematically, I understand that, you know, they're fighting over the land. I understand it. And a turf war is like gangs and stuff like that. So it fits, but I'm not happy about it. And actually, it's not even optional. You do gain control of 1 of those lands. You get to pick which one, but I guess if they only have 1 land with a contested counter on it, so the lands just kind of swap around, I guess, is the idea. But it could be okay, but I'm not generally a fan of that kind of player interaction. It's just, it feels unfun. Anyway, it's fine. Everything fits, flavor-wise, it's fine. I just don't want to see it. Ooh, Wave of Rats. 3 and a black. Those are enormous. Wait, oh man, okay. So this guy in the back, I think the rats are swarming him, but why is he looking over here? Like, I'd be focused on the rats that are actually here, you know? Like, That seems reasonable, but I guess not. Anyway, 3 and a black for a 4/2 rat with trample. When Wave of Rats dies, if it dealt combat damage to a player this turn, return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Blitz 4 and a black. If you cast this spell for its blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next end step. Yep, we've seen that. So great. And it does have trample. It's a 4/2. That's not anything to sneeze at. It costs 4, so odds are good there are going to be other things out that can block it pretty easily, but it might still get through for some damage. So ideally it does, and then when it dies, it comes back to the battlefield. And that just kind of keeps happening. Especially if it has haste. So that's why it's a wave. Like, it's kind of a swarm. So it just keeps coming back until someone can exile it. And if you do the blitz cost, then you get to draw a card. So honestly, this is probably, which is why the blitz costs 1 more. Blitz is actually better on this one because it's going to keep coming back. It's probably doing damage every time. You're drawing a card and then it comes back to the battlefield. So this is actually a pretty sick card. It does have to deal combat damage to a player. So if they have enough blockers up and it doesn't get through, then you just get your card and that's it. And if you have a way to bring it back, then great. But ideally, if you're casting it for its blitz cost, it's because you're pretty sure it's getting through. TBD. But, yeah. Again, I don't know why this guy's focused on this rat when he literally has them leaping for him and on his shoulders and all that. But otherwise, it looks pretty well represented by what's going on. Weathered Sentinels. 3 colorless for a 2/5 artifact creature wall with defender, vigilance, reach, and trample. Sure. Weathered Sentinels can attack players who attacked you during their last turn as though it didn't have defender. Okay, so they can hit back. They can't strike out, they can't initiate violence, but they can return it in kind. Whenever Weathered Sentinels attacks, it gets +3/+3 and gains indestructible until end of turn. Very nice. So should they attack you, should one of your opponents attack you, it can attack them. It becomes a 5/7 indestructible. So they can block if they want, but it does have trample, and it's just going to take out a bunch of people. It has vigilance, so it can still defend you afterwards. And it has reach. It's actually, that's, you know, the more I read it, the more I'm like, that's pretty legit, because it's either going to defend you, like, pretty well. A 2/5 is beefy enough, and it has reach, so it can block flyers too. And then should someone attack you, it just comes in and barrels on through with indestructible and can still defend you the next turn. That's actually pretty good. So these are statues, and they're weathered because they're experienced, right? They look kind of elderly, but they're also weathered because the weather has gotten to the statues. So, we like it. Okay. We made it to the final... See, it was going to be 8 cards, but since we already talked about Boxing Ring, which may or may not be in the Riveteers Rampage deck, we're just going to skip over that when we get to it, and hopefully it's in there. Maybe it's not. That's fine. Okay, so we have, as our first card, Benny Brax, Zoologist. 3 and a white for a 3/2 elf druid with Convoke. Your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 colorless or 1 mana of that creature's color. Right. At the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. Now, as a reminder, these cards with the Halo Fountain background here are only found in set and or collector's boosters. So these are not in any of the decks, hence the different background, and they're like in their own little category. But I thought I should include them anyway because they seem, some of them seem pretty commander oriented, and they're kind of not in the main set, they're not in the commander decks, so I just figured I'd put them in here. At the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. Very nice. So, yeah, in the go wide white mini deck, like, or anything, it's just tokens, actually. So this could even be treasure tokens. It doesn't have to be creature tokens. It's whatever. And Convoke is very nice, because the tokens that you are making can help you cast the spell. So you make some tokens, tap them, cast Benny, and then you get a card. Very nice. His enthusiastic curiosity puts even the most fearsome of beasts at ease. That's so cute! He's like so interested in them that they're like, hey, no big deal, man. Go ahead, check me out. I love that. Like this, what would normally be like a pretty fearsome creature is just totally chill because Benny is just like, wow, you're amazing. And the creature's like, I know. That's totally me. That's definitely a nice purple pants and vest too. Yeah, absolutely me as a dude and a zoologist. All right. So Boxing Ring we're going to skip over because I don't know whether it's in the set or whether it's one of these. It could be in the Riveteers Rampage deck, or it could be in only the set and collector boosters. I'm not 100% sure. Great card, we love it, but we just looked at it. Mari, the Killing Quill. 1 black for a 3/2 vampire assassin. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, exile it with a hit counter on it. Okay. Assassins, mercenaries, and rogues you control have death touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a hit counter from a card that player owns in exile. If you do, draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens. So if you can kill off their creatures, then deal combat damage to a player with an assassin, mercenary, or rogue, and obviously she's an assassin but fits well into a deck with other assassins, mercenaries, and rogues. They've all got death touch, so your opponents don't really want to block them anyway. But even then, when one of them dies, you're just going to exile it. So assuming that they don't die, I mean, you're going to have some if you're playing this deck, right? And then you can remove a hit counter from a card that player owns in exile, which is one of the creatures of theirs that died, and you get to draw a card and make 2 treasure tokens. So, so the card is still exiled regardless. Like, their creature is getting exiled one way or another. It doesn't matter whether you remove the hit counter or not. You remove the hit counter, it's still there. And you get to draw a card and create 2 treasure tokens because you successfully completed the hit. So the card is just, I don't know, experience or whatever, but you get paid in 2 treasure tokens. So, excellent flavor. The art is so interesting. Like, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but the glow and the lighting in the picture is just really nice. And look, see, here's her quill. Maybe she uses it as like a way to stab people in the neck or something. Brutal. Anyway, very, very nice card. I can see some really fun things happening here. Assassin, mercenary, rogue, tribal is something I never thought I'd say, and yet I'm intrigued. Alright, Spiteful Repossession. 4 and a red for a sorcery. Spiteful Repossession deals damage to each opponent who controls more lands than you, equal to the difference. Then you create a number of treasure tokens equal to the damage dealt this way. Nice. So, I'll make sure there's no flavor text. Yeah, so if you're running behind on lands, you can play this. Now granted, at that point you've got 5 at least. Unless you're making treasure tokens. So, I don't know. Maybe you don't. But each opponent takes damage equal to the difference between the lands they control and the lands you control. And then you get treasure tokens equal to the number of damage. So it's each opponent too. So if all 3 of them control more than you, you could be getting 3 treasure tokens plus a damage to each of them off of this one card. And that's a pretty sweet deal. Ideally, it's more than that, but I mean, even that's pretty good, so hey. Late payment shall be extracted however they see fit. I don't know how well that fits into a land thing, but the payment of treasure tokens and the damage at least makes sense. So sure. And it is spiteful because they hit back for whatever while repossessing the thing. Swindler's Scheme. 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Is that a blade turning into a fish? Yeah. Okay, hang on. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from their hand, you may reveal the top card of your library. If it shares a card type with that spell, counter that spell, and that opponent may cast the revealed card without paying its mana cost. So this is obviously better if you can manipulate the top of your library, if you like at least know what's up there through scrying or something. But you basically give them something else. So okay, this person swindled by letting the person think they bought a dagger, but it was like enchanted to become a fish, I guess. So they try to cast something and you're like, actually, you can have this instead if it shares a card type. So maybe that's better. I mean, if they're trying to cast a kill spell and you give them a counter spell, that doesn't do them a whole lot of good. So I can see the utility here, but it's really weird. It's a very strange little card here. I'm curious to see how it works. Alright, Tenuous Truce. 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. Okay. We kind of have the Maestro's symbol going on here. Okay, so you enchant your opponent. At the beginning of enchanted opponent's end step, you and that player each draw a card. When you attack enchanted opponent or a planeswalker they control, or when they attack you or a planeswalker you control, sacrifice Tenuous Truce. Okay, right. So you enchant your opponent, and at the beginning of their end step, you each draw a card. Okay. And then if anyone should break said Tenuous Truce, you sacrifice it and it no longer applies. So they get a bonus card draw, but so do you. If anyone attacks each other, though, or a planeswalker, well, it's all done. Deal's done. And you've got these 2 blades locked by this gold magic chain. And they want to be fighting, but they're like, well, alright, I guess this is good for both of us for now. I don't really see what they're getting out of it, but I can see why this would definitely be like, well, the second somebody moves, we're going to be in trouble. So, yeah. Alright. More politicking. Always fun. Threefold Signal. It is a traffic light. We love it. Okay, so it's 3 colorless for an artifact. When Threefold Signal enters the battlefield, scry 3. Surprise! Each spell you cast that's exactly 3 colors has replicate 3. We're just like going ham on the 3 here. Well, what does replicate 3 mean? When you cast it, copy it for each time you paid its replicate cost. Okay. You may choose new targets for the copies. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. Okay, yeah. So if you cast a spell that's exactly 3 colors, you can pay an additional 3 mana, and then you can copy it. Well, actually, you could pay an additional 3, 6, 9, etc., and you copy it for each additional 3 that you paid. And when it enters the battlefield, you scry 3 so you can see what's coming up. Yeah, I mean, you'd need like a good amount of mana, but depending on what you're copying, this could totally be worth it. If you can copy some kill spells or permanents or enchantments or what, I mean, literally anything, I guess. You're paying an extra 3 each time, but if you can just pay 3 to copy whatever you want, that's pretty good. So yeah. I've heard it said that a scry is worth about half a card, so if you're scrying 3, it's like drawing 1.5 cards, kind of. So hey, there you go. Yeah, Threefold Signal, and like I said, it's a traffic light. I mean, how can you be mad? And so you have the cars down here, and of course there's just like a sphinx flying around because they don't need... But is it actually following the traffic signals too? That would be so weird. Why would you... Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a traffic light. We're happy. And finally, we have Vazi. Vazi? We're going with Vazi. Keen Negotiator. 2 black, red, green. For 3/3 Human Advisor with haste. Tap. Target opponent creates X treasure tokens, where X is the number of treasure tokens you created this turn. Okay. Whenever an opponent casts a spell or activates an ability, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it or activate it, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then draw a card. Okay, so you give them the treasure tokens, but if they use it, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature and draw a card. So, I mean, even if you don't have any creatures out, you're still drawing a card if they use the treasure tokens. You have given them the treasure tokens, but you can generally wheel and deal and kind of make this work. I mean, these are kind of oriented towards that, where you're making deals with people. And I mean, she's a negotiator. She's a keen negotiator. So she says, yeah, no, you can have that. But this is what's in it for me. And she has haste, so you can do it immediately. So you get your value. Now, if she leaves the battlefield, they just get those treasure tokens, and you don't get any bonuses off of it because she's not there. But if she's out, yeah, I mean, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to have given them the treasure. If you're playing against someone who's making a bunch of treasure, you just get that. You don't have to give it to them. So that's even better, right? But you can activate it yourself if you want to. Only if you've created treasure tokens, though. So this goes in a treasure deck, obviously, but, you know, the Riveteers Rampage has some treasure stuff going on. Yeah, and she's here. What? I don't even know what this is. I think it's maybe a piece of paper, and then a glass of Halo, because obviously. So yeah. A very interesting art. The lighting, as always, with like these weird glowy things going on, is very, very pretty and very interesting. I still have no idea what this is. Maybe a blade? No, that's her arm. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, but maybe it's a contract. In any case, it's an interesting card. It would go really well in the treasure deck I want to build, so we may make that happen. We'll see. Anyway, that brings us to the end here. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it a bunch. And I'm not sure what or when exactly I'll be doing more things, but come find me on Twitch, shadowcat_91, and I'll be updating my schedule there periodically. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you on the flip side. Should probably time that sign off better, right? Anyway, bye everyone!